Okay, in this video, we're going to take a look at what blueprints are and how they use a concept known as inheritance, which is not a difficult concept to understand, but it is important that you know what we mean when we say the word inheritance and what it means for game developers in general. And with that concept, you can be a much more powerful game developer in Unreal Engine. So to understand the concept of inheritance, we first need to understand the concept of classes. Now, in game development, when we say the word class, we're really meaning it to be a concept of classifying things into categories. And we can make an analogy by taking a look at things in real life and how they are classified into different categories. For example, we can look at the animal kingdom. And we're not really going to use any scientific terms, so I don't really want this to be a science video, so we're not going to use terms like genus and species and things like that. I want to just understand that animals are a particular category of thing. They're creatures, and all animals share some characteristics. So for example, all animals can reproduce, they can eat food, and they have some way of moving around. And we can say that all animals share these characteristics. So we can think of animal as the type of category or class of thing that contains these characteristics. Now, all animals may have these things in common. However, there may be different types of animals that have their own unique characteristics. For example, there are mammals, reptiles, and birds, and these are all animals. So we can say that all mammals are animals, for example, but it doesn't go both ways. We can't say that all animals are mammals because some animals are reptiles, some are birds, and so on. So this is a one-way relationship, and we can think of the animal category or animal class to be sort of like the parent class, and mammals would be a particular type of child class of the animal. So because all animals can reproduce and eat food and move around, anything that inherits from the animal class, such as mammals, reptiles, and birds, they automatically inherit those characteristics. So we can safely say that all of these specific types of animals also reproduce, they also eat food, and they can also move around. Now, each individual type of animal, mammals, reptiles, and birds, for example, while they do inherit some characteristics from the base parent class of animal, they also may have their own unique characteristics. For example, mammals have fur and they're warm-blooded. Now, contrast that with reptiles who have scales and are cold-blooded. So just because mammals and reptiles are animals doesn't mean that they're the same in all respects. And birds, for example, are covered in feathers, and they too are warm-blooded. So mammals and birds share the feature of being warm-blooded, but they still have other differences. Now let's take a look at the mammal type for an example. Now we know mammals are a type of animal, but there are in fact different types of mammals as well. And we can say that bears, deer, and squirrels are all mammals, but not all mammals are deers, for example. So this, similar to the previous relationship of mammals to animals, is a one-way relationship. So even though all bears, deer, and squirrels are mammals, not all mammals are deers, bears, or squirrels necessarily. Now, mammals inherit reproducing, eating food, and moving around from the animal class, and therefore the bears, deer, and squirrels will also inherit those characteristics. Mammals, however, are unique in that they have fur and they're warm-blooded. But because bears, deer, and squirrels are mammals, they too can inherit these traits, so they've essentially inherited some features from the mammal class as well as the animal class. Now, in addition to inheriting these features, they also may have their own unique features. So bears, for example, they hibernate in the winter and they're big and scary. And deers, although they are also mammals, They do not hibernate. They also have antlers, something that bears and squirrels don't have, and they're also not very scary, at least in general compared to bears. And squirrels, of course, are different than bears and deer in that they climb trees and they're definitely not scary. So as we go down in this hierarchy of classes, we get more and more specific and have more and more specific traits and functionality that the previous parent class did not possess. So just like the animal kingdom, in Unreal Engine, we also have classes. And one of the more general classes is the actor class. Now, the actor class has its own characteristics that all actors share. For example, actors can be placed in the level. Actors can have a visual representation in the level, so some sort of geometry. So if you have an item in the level, maybe a rock, that item is an actor, and the geometry that represents that rock is something that all actors are capable of having. Actors can be created and destroyed in game, so they can dynamically be spawned or destroyed while the game is running. So this is a feature that all actors possess. Now, there are more specific types of actor. For example, there are pawns, there are static mesh actors, there are point light actors, and these are all actors, so they inherit the functionality that all actors have, but in addition to that, they have their own unique characteristics. For example, pawns can be possessed, and possession is something that pawns can undergo, which allows us to be able to take user input, such as keyboard strokes or mouse clicks, and have that affect the pawn. For example, we may want to move the pawn around by hitting the arrow keys on the keyboard. So that's something that pawns are capable of doing. Now, that is not something that a static mesh actor has the capability of doing, but the static mesh actor has the feature that it basically displays a mesh. It has mesh information, and that's geometry. So we'll get into what meshes are and how to use them in the game. And this is different than a point light actor, which has the capability of emitting light and shining light into the world. So while all of these inherit some features from the actor class, they also have their own unique features as well. So let's take a look at the pawn specifically and see how the pawn can be a class that more specific types of classes can inherit from. So in Unreal Engine, we can have a character class and we can have a vehicle class. Now these are both pawns. So in a sense, they inherit those features that pawn inherits from actor. And they also inherit the fact that they can be possessed, which is a pawn specific feature. Let's take a look at the character. Now the character is a pawn, and the pawn is an actor. So we can also say that the character is both a pawn and an actor. And because it's an actor, it inherits actor-specific functionality. It can be placed in a level, can have geometry, and it can be created and destroyed in-game. Now, because the character is also a pawn, it can be possessed, and you can use user input to move it. And then, of course, in addition to being a pawn, it also has character-specific functionality, and these things are things that a character would need, but something like a static mesh actor or a point light would not necessarily need. And those are more specific details, but for now, it's enough to understand that the character is a more specific type of pawn, and that it inherits features from both the pawn and the actor class. So because the actor has its own functionality, we can create a new type of class and we can base it off of the actor class. And if we do that, we say that we're creating a new custom actor, and that custom actor will inherit some functions and properties from the actor class. So we can create our own custom type of actor and inherit these features in addition to giving our custom actor its own unique functionality. For example, we may want some sort of explosive that will explode on contact in the game. So we can easily create a new type of actor that has the ability to be placed in the level, have a visual geometry, and be able to be created and destroyed. and we can also add features to it to make it, say, explode if that's what we want. So we understand classes, so what exactly are blueprints? Well, a blueprint is sort of what it sounds like. If you think about in real life what blueprints are, they are diagrams or pieces of paper that show the plans to make a house or a building. So if you're trying to make a building, you first need the plans, and the blueprint provides a template or a way to give you the instructions for how to create a building in real life. Now, blueprints have basically properties that they inherit from one of the Unreal Engine classes. So we can have actor blueprints, we can have pawn blueprints, and so on. So, for example, we may have an actor blueprint. Now, an actor blueprint is not an actual actor, and this is just the same as saying a blueprint in real life is not an actual house. A blueprint is just a piece of paper. An actual house is made of wood, tile, plaster, carpet, things like that. So you need a blueprint to create an actor, but we don't say that the blueprint is the actor. To do that, we actually make an instance of the blueprint actor. So using the blueprint, you can make multiple objects that are of that type. So we may have an actor blueprint, and based on that actor blueprint, we can create an actual instance of the actor class. And this actor is what we call an instance. So in the game, we have actor instances, and we contrast this with the default, which is the actual blueprint. So the default blueprint has its own default properties that you can set on the blueprint, and we can basically drag actors into the world and create them based on that blueprint, which is sort of the template or the set of instructions used to create that actor. So that's how actors and blueprints are used in the game. And so basically in Unreal Engine, what we're going to be doing is creating these blueprints, and these blueprints will be given some sort of properties and functionality that we want the actual actors in the game to inherit and to emulate. So for example, if we want to create a particular type of actor to place in the world, we're first going to create the blueprint. We're going to basically determine in the blueprint what's going to happen in game, and then we're going to create an actual actor based on that blueprint and drag it in the game and possibly make copies of it and so on. So this concludes classes and blueprints, and we're going to solidify this knowledge with some examples as we create our games in Unreal Engine.